welcome to a new edition of Our Money is Business. As we always say, in business means money. Stability in business means a lot of money. We're broadcasting live from Cairo. And tonight we're talking about a myriad of issues, of course, tackling the development taking place on the local scene, of course, all that has to do with Middle East and the whole world. I'm Nermin Nazim, and there have been very successful events taking place. The King Tut exhibition, Tutankhamun exhibition in Paris, that was labeled the most visited event in French history. The King Tutankhamun exhibition at Paris Grand Hall broke the record most visited cultural event in this year, with a turnout of more than 1.37 million visitors. Ambassador to Paris and the permanent representative to UNESCO, Ehab Badawi, said that the temporary exhibition had the highest number of visitors in history for an event organized in France, even though the main piece, the mask of Tutankhamun, was not on display. The exhibition was also the most cited in 1967, when it was on display at the Petit Palais with 1.24 million people attending. The exhibition is believed to have had a positive impact on French tourist influx into Egypt, which, as records show, has seen marked increase over the last period. The Tutankhamun exhibition will be on display from March 23rd until September 22nd, featuring 150 artifacts that belonged to the king, 60 of which had never left Egypt before, and will be permanently placed at the Grand Egyptian Museum, the Gem, after the tour. And we have with us online Mr. Walid Al-Batouti, former advisor to the Minister of Tourism. Hello, sir.
Yes, hi, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Talking about the grand exhibition that is actually visited by a very big number, exceeding what was expected, what was before, from the French visitors, and also encouraging French tourism into Egypt. Can you comment on that?
Yes, well, the exhibition is not over yet. I think they still have about 17 days. Yesterday was 18, so they still have 17 days yet. And the numbers have reached about 1.3 million. It is not that the 1.3 were all French. No, it was all from people from all over Europe going there visiting. It is a promotion. It's encouraging people to think about the visit to Egypt, of course, or at least they think it's a teaser. 166 pieces. Of course, we had at the very beginning people who likes to be in opposition to everything and saying why and how and all of these things. Of course, the exhibit has lots of very good and positive points towards the Grand Egyptian Museum. It's a good promotion to the Egyptian Museum, the new one that will take place. And we need the positive titles to Egypt in the media abroad. We need the people. Because they were taking care of the exhibit, in Paris, and everybody saying this is one of the most impressive exhibitions I've ever seen. Let me tell you, I would like to take the quote from Dr. Zahir Hawass. Dr. Zahir Hawass says, I'm hardly impressed, but when I went to that exhibit in Paris, I was so impressed with the show, the way they set everything. So all of this is considered to be positive points to Egypt. Okay? So as I said earlier, there are people in Egypt at the very beginning, they always like to opposite anything. But in reality, we want to work, to promote the Grand Egyptian Museum. We want the better for Egypt. We want the people around the world to know, to have good news about Egypt. We have to promote Egypt and show a different Egypt, not just Egypt, the pyramids and the monuments and all of this. Yep. No, we have to show Egypt, the modern Egypt, the new sites and things like this. There was just a recent big article in Time magazine about a beach in the Red Sea resort.
Yes.
It's called the Nile. Things like this. We have to keep feeding the media and the media in the West, especially, with positive things about Egypt. I think this is the best thing we can have.
Yes, and following up on that, how is tourism doing nowadays? Any new, different news?
Sorry?
How is tourism doing in Egypt? Generally, the number of tourists, how is it developing here?
We're taking very positive, steady steps. It's increasing, it's growing, and I mean, very soon we might hit the numbers that we've done before. So before 2010, of course, you know that we had 6 or 7 years that was extremely bad to the tourism industry. But we're doing good. I can see the numbers. We have different markets. We have markets that we never thought of before that they're visiting Egypt now.
Yes. Mr. Walid Batouti, thank you. We're back again with our guests, and a lot has to be. We have to talk about a lot of economic issues taking place. But let me first introduce our guests. We have with us Dr. Said Al-Khouly, Professor of Business Administration and Entrepreneurial Economics, Business Ethics. Thank you, sir, for being with us. You always honored us with your presence. Also, we have our guest, Dr. Osama Murad, the economic expert. Thank you for being with us. Been a long time, actually, but here we are.
Being with you both.
And Dr. Said Al-Khouly, definitely. You wanted to comment before starting our talk?
Well, a comment is we have a duality here between the different ministries. The antiquities ministries is the beneficiary or the sponsor of those tours of our antiquities globally. I don't think there is a touristic reward or income on Egypt. We were never disclosed the numbers of income those tours bring, and there is always a risk of that those antiquities are stolen, broken, get damaged anyhow, change the environment. It's a too high risk for that. And particularly France, which has shown the most number of tours with our antiquities too, the number of French visitors is extremely small. And in general, still the antiquities or touristic business for antiquities and history has declined globally. So I think we should properly evaluate that, and the tourism ministry should play a role in stopping those tours.
Okay, so you're against it, but what about now? You know, we're having the Grand Egyptian Museum opening, of course, a totally different thing, and another exhibition, actually a museum that is going to be opening in the capital, new capital. How do you see that?
This is fantastic news. I'm for the expansion of Egyptian sites and museums to be an attractive point for tourists, to have a geographical distribution, so everything is not centralized. We were all complaining from the small size or the over-cramping of antiquities in the old Egyptian museum. Yeah. So it's a great step. It's the biggest museum in the world. It's an attraction in itself, the museum, and it will be enough to showcase the grandiosity of Egyptian antiquities. I hope that enough technology and 3D lighting and design and sound will be there to give tourists and visitors and guests to Egypt the experience they want, because they go to the museum to have a summary of Egypt. Yeah. It's a half-day tour. I think now companies will include that as a 2-day tour or more. So they
especially
will stay
that there is an
longer
airport
and,
there.
And stay longer. There is an airport. There are the infrastructure of ways, highways and ring roads and autostrads is connecting it better, and it offers another great destination instead of having the Egyptian Museum in the busiest square of Egypt.
Definitely. Did you want to comment?
Absolutely, I agree with Dr. Osama, of course. The whole thing, we're missing the link of marketability.
Yes.
We don't market ourselves in a very good way in terms of tourism. So what we need really is to have a good marketing tools in order to enhance our income from that tourism, whether inside Egypt or outside Egypt. I believe when you go to a museum in France or in the States or anywhere in Europe, you will find a lot of activity involved with the museum, not only the piece of monument or whatever, but also the background of each things and explanations, videotapes and souvenir combined with that. And the marketability is very important, and there is many tools with all the social media. Yeah. Right now. We can utilize that as a marketing tools for. We are the oldest history in the whole world, and we really didn't invest on that direction. So it's very important. Marketability is very important. Yeah. It's good to have a bigger place. It's good to have different branches for museum all over Egypt, but also, I believe, before the construction, the marketability and forecasting for the future in order to attract more and more tourism. I believe from the report you have, we still have a good news in coming years for the number of tourism will come to Egypt. That's the good news. And good news bring the good news.
Yes, hopefully. Focusing on tonight's episode, the Central Bank of Egypt said that Egypt's foreign reserves rose to about $44.969 billion at the end of August 2019, an increase of about $52 million in a month. Egypt imports about an average of $5 billion per month for goods and products from abroad, with with an annual total of more than 5.60 billion. Thus, the current average of foreign exchange reserves cover about 7.2 months of commodity imports to Egypt, which is higher than the global average of about 3 months commodity imports to Egypt, which ensures that the needs of Egypt's commodities and strategic commodities. The central bank here, the function of the bank's foreign exchange reserves is to provide commodities, repay foreign debt and the interest, of course, and to deal with economic crises in exceptional circumstances. Okay. So, the increase in the foreign reserves, how do you see it?
Well, it's a minor. I mean, it's stable. $44 million is less than 1% of what we currently have.
Yeah.
I think we have enough to sustain an import, which the report shows. Central Bank has given the market many indications, and also the Ministry of Finance this week, by decreasing the interest rate by 1.5%, which shows now the central bank is not afraid of any dollarization issue. Inflation is under control, and we want to attract more investments and promote the private business to invest more, because we're decreasing the cost of doing business. Ministry of Finance has abolished the customs dollar, which was the only other rate which we have.
Yeah.
We are generally against administrative rates. We want the market to dominate what's there, so that the consumer can benefit from the declining dollar price or the appreciating pound. Because what we have seen in the last couple of months was that the Egyptian pound appreciated against the dollar by more than 10%, while the prices of imported goods did not go down, and that was a formula and the result of having a nominal dollar administrative rate, which we now have abolished, which means that traders, importers, and producers have to adjust to a marketable rate and do business in a better way, and the consumer benefits the most.
But who ensures that? Well, like the prices,
The market. The strongest insurance is always the dynamics of supply and demand and the market. And the more we open up the market and allow competition, the more the competition will drive the prices to their fair price.
Okay.
That's the name of the game. The name of the game is to really, if we have free economy and the competition play its major rules, and let the supply and demand really dominate the movement of the market. That's very important. I will elaborate on whatever my colleague says about attracting foreign direct investment.
Yeah.
That is the main issue for enhancing the Egyptian economical system, is to attract foreign direct investment. With all development happening through the last 4 or 5 years, it's one step ahead in order to attract foreign direct investment in terms of highways, in terms of power supply and all of that. It gives an indication for our economical system is stable right now. The fight against tourism, it's at the minimum right now, and that is the good news.
Yeah.
And when we have this kind of development, whether it's highway, infrastructure of roads and all of that, it will really attract more foreign direct investment to Egyptian economy. And of course, again, we'll go for how to market ourselves, not among us here inside,
definitely,
but outside of Egypt. So
yes.
I believe the embassy all over the world, Egyptian embassy all over the world, and the whatever the commercial delegate over there, they have to play a major role to market the investment opportunity. We have an investment map right now by investment ministry. We have to advertise it not inside Egypt, but outside Egypt, in order to attract more foreign direct investment and to enhance our industrial system.
Definitely. Talking about investments in the African Initiative for Investment, that's very important.
Egypt is supporting the African continent strongly through its presidency this year of the African Union, and President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi is taking that very seriously. He has pushed the African agenda on the radar of the major events in the world. So we have seen G7 meetings with Africa, we've seen Japanese meetings with Africa, we've seen Chinese, we've seen German. So the major economic powers have been showcased the African opportunities, which they know well. We're asking for infrastructure projects, we're guaranteeing the support, and Egypt is doing a role of sponsor and intermediary. We have the ability to be on the ground. We have many strong Egyptian companies, state-owned and private sector, who are operating and building infrastructure projects in Egypt. The connectivity between the African nations through the pan-African roads, also through shipping, allow Egypt to be the hub of imports and exports to Egypt, but also to execute the projects on the ground. And what this continent really needs is foreign direct investment. And why do we say foreign direct investment? We welcome, of course, our local investors more, but this is the pie, and it's there. When we grow by ourselves, we grow by only a certain percentage. When we attract foreign direct investment, we add more money to the economy and brings more employment opportunities, which actually also has good news because we have a declining unemployment rate issued by the central bank. Now, so all macroeconomic figures are looking now in the best shape, maybe since 7-8 years. So we're ready for the launch, but as Dr. Said maybe said, a little bit of business marketing, a little bit of business development could then take it off, either through the use of our commercial attaches and ambassadors around the world, and also on the ground, fine-tuning red tape and listening to investors what the hurdle is so that they're here. Because now, on paper, everything looks fantastic.
Yes.
We're awaiting that we launch.
Is there any improvement in dealing with the red tape? Actually, that's a big impediment. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Also, you know, there is a piece of news here. Egypt's agricultural exports rise by more than 4.7 million tons. The Ministry of Agriculture and Land Reclamation announced that the volume of Egyptian agricultural exports has increased to more than 4.7 million tons so far. The Minister of Agriculture and Land Reclamation received the weekly report on agricultural exports from Dr. Ahmed Attar, head of the Central Department of Agriculture, or quarantine on total exports during the period, actually from January 1st to September 4th. The report said exports totaled 4,708,916 tons of agricultural products, up 533,830 tons over the same period last year. I'll stop here. Any comments on that?
Another good news, you know. I believe the Egyptian government and the leadership of President Sisi, we used to focus in one sector and ignore other sectors.
Yes.
Now the strategy is going through all different sectors, whether it's agriculture, whether it's industrial, whether it's service industry. So they focus on all of this avenue in order to enhance our economical system. Remember, 1.5 million acres have been developed, and we see, so last week when President Sisi open all this field, of course this enhance and expand the power of exporting our agricultural product outside. And of course, I was going through the road of Dama, and I see in my left-hand side of this new road, hundreds of thousands of acres have been really developed, and now they have a plant and they have a production. and all of that, it's a plus. And that's the difference between short-term strategy and long-term strategy. Because most of the people, the negative campaign, why we building roads, why, and
well, there's always the negative
now
campaign
we
there.
have started really to gain the benefit of this infrastructure with the power supply, and I believe in the near future we'll be able to satisfy the need of Egyptian from food, from all agriculture product, and we'll be able to export more in the future. I believe strongly agriculture, beside industrial, beside service price, tourism, we should go with all different sectors in order to enhance our economical system.
Yes.
That's very important.
Yes. Also, well, with the gas explorations and all that, it seems, things are just, going better. But then, as you said, on the macroeconomic level, it looks really great. But on the microeconomic level, there is still, the prices are high. And there is also, we have this problem of, well, the population that is growing, not steadily, but just booming very fast, that we are just 100 million. And any kind of development will be absorbed by such increase.
We need to change the mindset from prices are high to incomes are low. The prices in Egypt are still lower than global prices. And due to that Egypt is part of the global economy, we export a lot and we import a lot. We have to always link to the global economy. And the only way to enhance the living standards of the Egyptian is to increase income. And you increase income by growing the gross domestic product and giving opportunities for entrepreneurship, creativity, private business to flourish and grow. Erase red tape as much as possible so that people can work and grow and do better business. The only negative issue we have that we see many Egyptian companies leaving Egypt, domiciling abroad because of tax issues or red tape, or setting up in other countries and doing business in Egypt. So we should look at it to solve this issue.
How?
But the oil and gas, just to pick on that because I wanted to add that, I think that 2020 will be the year for oil and gas in Egypt. We have seen one of the biggest success stories in this sector, from a sector where we had a shortage in 2013, which caused gasoline shortages, which caused power outage, to a sector which will add to the gross domestic product. We will have an oversupply of oil, gas, and energy in general, but we also are building tremendous projects to add value through LNG plants, through exports, through Egypt acting as a sector, a hub for the region for imports and export, be that either through the pipeline with the neighboring Israel, or be that with the industrial projects which are done in the Suez area, hydrocrackers, propylene plants, ethylene plants. We process oil for Iraq, we process oil for Libya. So there is lots of industrial projects and value-adding projects in this sector. And this is why I'm also not worried about the foreign currency, because this will change the situation from the oil and sector being a consumer or user of foreign currency to adding more foreign currency to Egypt's balance of payments.
Definitely. I remember years back in 2013 and on, and we could not really talk about all these things. There was like one thing, one by one actually, and when we hit rock bottom, it was very difficult, and things started growing slowly and booming. And as we always asked every week, how do you see the business climate? How do you see our economy right now, and the development, just generally?
I'm not going to really elaborate in that. I will go to the most recent 8 of the biggest financial indexes worldwide. They have a good rating and good news for Egyptian economy. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, they issued a report, the economical sector, the economical system in Egypt working in the right direction. The Moody's, for example, index show Egypt it has progress in terms of economical, and all this economical correction and policy we did in the last few years, it show a good result in rating Egypt. For example, Standard & Poor show a good indicator for Egyptian economy. Also, as my colleague mentioned, the Global Creativity Index shows in terms of entrepreneur and new project and so on, show Egypt leading Africa in that direction. So we have 8 international society or association rate Egypt in a positive way. Let's not go back and look back. We should really look ahead. Egypt economy is moving really in the right direction. I believe within 2 years you will see different, as my colleague mentioned, in terms of oil and the gas and so on, we'll be able to export our gas and oil to the rest of the world. We are going to be the hub in terms of oil and the gas industry. We are going to be a hub also for industrial zone in Suez and Port Said through the Suez Canal and so on. Will be moving, and we are leading Africa as we are now heading the African nation. Will be able to move from raw material to component part, and that's a very important rule for assembly industrial sector will be able to move ahead. There is a good news coming in a very near future.
Yes. Also, we have, like for example, the other developing cities, and New Alamein city, and then with the now, like it seems it's ready. How do you see, like all that in very few years' time, and maybe in the next couple of years, attracting investments, and maybe let's say not replacing, but being as equal as other hubs, attracting investors instead of going to other places? We are doing good work here.
I don't think that the government of Egypt is trying to stimulate the investment in that sector. It uses the expansion to attract other investments, industrial and commercial, because this is a long-term investment. It might not be feasible for foreign direct investors. But having new cities, which are also not new just by the building, but it's a better infrastructure, it's technologically based, most of them or all of them are smart cities, are green cities, qualified. But we're also doing something very important which people are not noticing. We are restoring Cairo back. We have 2 major projects of areas which could qualify previously as slums, which is the area around this building, which is now being torn down completely, and we will build a new part of the city, and the area around the citadel, which also is seen of. So we're not only building satellite cities to attract the expansion and absorb the growth in the population and offer opportunities for doing business elsewhere, benefiting from the tourism sector on the north coast all year round, but we're also restoring and enhancing the living standards of Egyptians inside Cairo and other cities. The same has been done in Alexandria and many other cities.
Yes, Mount Galele project and all other projects definitely.
In New Asyut, all of this has really, I would like to really add something very important, is the mindset of the decision maker. At the head of the pyramids, the mindset is going forward with speed in order to enhance. But the base of the pyramids, the red tape, as Dr. Osama mentioned, we really still, the mindset set back for the last 20 years. It doesn't, so we have to really change the culture of business. The dynamic of business now is moving very fast. And if we are not really training our people, educating our people, is to change their mindset with the new culture of business, that's very important. Investment and attracting investment, it needs a new skills, worldwide skills, technological skills, skills for speaking the language of this foreign direct investment language is very important. Not the old-fashioned way to attract business. I believe whatever we are doing in the top of the pyramid is moving in the direction, but the base of the pyramids,
Either
which
holding it down
it's
or just
really
moving
holding
in the
down with the red tape,
Yeah.
with the process, and I believe with the automation the government going through right now, it will really eliminate all this red tape process, because the process of doing investment now, we can do it in hours or in days.
Yeah.
It used to be months and years before. That's very important.
So, whether they like it or not, there is, development that will just force them to go ahead with it. That's what you want to say. Hopefully it goes that way, because well, everything that is different meets a lot of negative reactions, and of course they would not really accept it. It's not easy. It's something that went for years, and then change coming. Also, talking about, we're not looking, we're not considering that we're not, there is threat surrounding us, yet we're working very hard, and we're just developing, but it's not all easy. We're just talking about being surrounded by countries that are hit by terrorism, but we're just, closing our borders and trying to just, or actually going ahead as if we're not really touched by that, like the army takes care of the other side, but still not very easy environment to work in, as some people would just go all the time, objecting, negatively commenting. Definitely okay, you've got right to talk, but not everybody is an economic and political, social expert. And then
the government has neglected one thing, and this is maybe explains why the head and the state and the government is moving in one direction and the rest of the country is not moving with the same speed, which is alignment, which is the marketing, psychological marketing to the constituents of Egypt, the workers, the citizens. Everybody has to understand the vision behind that, why we're doing this, what it will lead to. There are sacrifices now, and people are willing to sacrifice if they understand when the sacrifice will end and what the fruits of their sacrifice will be. So, yes, it is difficult, and we always have to take this management decision when we are working. Should we waste time to explain why we're doing this, where this is leading,
you mean transparency,
how much this costs, how much it will earn, or should we just move ahead and finish? And then there is always a payoff between both.
Yeah.
But we've learned from examples in the developed world and the multinationals in the corporate world and successful companies that you have to take the time to explain to the constituents the reasons, the costs, the benefits, so that they are with you instead of being a force against you or doing nothing. So it requires a little bit of, as in every business, a little bit of marketing.
Marketing, or is it transparency in order to explain? Well, that
call it
goes with
marketing,
it.
call it alignment, call it transparency and disclosure. Because
change.
if you explain to people the amounts of gains from any projects, they will buy into it. And it's also a great exercise for the government, because once we disclose, we think, we calculate, and we don't do failing projects. We do successful projects because we allow discussion, we allow for people to share and discuss and calculate. We attract experts who are willing to add to whatever project or idea we have.
Definitely. Okay.
That's the name of the game again. There is, when you have a change, there is always resistance to change. I believe the power of change overcomes the resistance of change. The resistance was 5 years ago. It's less resistance now. I believe the resistance, it's almost eliminated, and we are moving in the right direction. I believe now we have what we call it as teamwork-oriented decision It's not individualistic, it's collectivistic.
It changed. So,
Absolutely. There is no ministry going by itself, but now we see a cooperation between different ministries to achieve certain goals. I believe we should work hard in terms of education, higher education, in healthcare system, because that is the foundation of the success of economical system. Economical system development and success, it's really should be based on a good educational system, and that's the lesson we learned from other country. I believe the threats now in Egypt at the minimum. We have a very stable government, we have a very stable policy, we have in a way or another, according to the 8 financial institutions worldwide, about the stability of our economical system. That is a good news. We should really bring more success. And I believe, again, in a very near future, you will see different Egypt, different economical system in Egypt. The Egyptian pound right now gaining power over the euro and dollar, and that is a good sign for development in our economical system. I believe not the government itself will do that, not President Sisi by himself will do that, but we should be cooperation between the leader of the state of Egypt, the leader of the government, and for public, me and you and many other people, we should look at the positive side and not at the negative side. There is no personal gain, I see it from any of the head of the pyramids. All they need is to be able to develop Egypt. All these highway roads, all this power supply, all this development in a way or another, new cities, new capital and all of that, that is for the benefit of the people. And the people should work with the government in order to enhance the Egyptian economy in the future. That's very important.
Definitely. Well,
and keep hope alive.
Definitely.
Very important.
Definitely. Well, education and development, we talk about education, that's very important, and, well, I meant training also, because, like we got in always, like, for example, in the tourism sector, a lot of people who were in the sector, the trained one, when things went down, they just, either left or they just headed to other businesses in order to make ends meet, definitely. Not only that, in other institutions, definitely, there should be
vocational training has been a problem for 3 or 4 decades now. We neglected vocational training because we put more emphasis on higher education. While higher education is an issue now which globally faces a challenge, the old education system is based on memorization. With the data available on every smartphone, there is no reason now to memorize. So the global educational system has to change. We have a great opportunity because our educational system ranking is already very, very much behind. So it is an opportunity that you change to the latest, what's there, to focus on problem solving, to focus on critical thinking, innovation, and so on the higher education.
Yes.
On the vocational side, I think it's an administrative issue. We neglect or undermine the importance of vocational training. So sometimes it falls under the Ministry of Industry, other times it comes with the Ministry of Education, other times it goes with the Ministry of Higher Education, and at a certain time it was a separate ministry and so on. So it has no father, as we said, it has no sponsor. Failure has no father, but success has many. But this issue needs to be tackled appropriately in light of the importance, because one of the benefits of Egypt, looking at the numbers, and this is all the global reports that Egypt will be a driving force in the global economy by 2030, focus on 2 issues: a growing 100 million population and the workforce. If our workforce is not competitive enough, and there are signs that we need to enhance the workforce, we will have to import workforce from abroad. So we need to upgrade the workforce to ensure our competitiveness and also to increase the living standards of the Egyptians.
What I know is that some companies who wanted to do work here just wanted to import,
well, definitely,
workers. But this is unfair. Well, fair and unfair, because like we can have really it's cheaper here, but then they need training. So how to solve that?
I remember like 20 or 25 years ago, when Dr. Abeid was the Prime Minister of Egypt. He was visiting me. You know, I met him in New York, and I said, the Egyptian labor force, the cost is close to zero. We have really less expensive workforce worldwide. But as my colleague mentioned, it's very important to train and retrain our workforce. Vocational training is a very important trend, and now when I visit schools in the States, they moved from the traditional way of classrooms and so on. They have now an incubator where they teach entrepreneurship, how to come with idea and how to be able to implement it in reality with budget from the university. Yeah. And that is really the trend worldwide. Technology-based education is very important. We still ignore that in our educational system. Online, for example, online education, it's very limited in Egypt. We should really expand on that. Yeah. We should really have integrative way of teaching, hybrid education. We should really look for alliance where all to have a strategic partnership between Egyptian or governmental educational university and foreign entity like in the States or in Europe or in Asia, in order to enhance our program. That is must in the upcoming period. It's very important. Mm-hmm. So vocational training, hybrid education, using online courses from Harvard, from any other university, the cost is really, compared to face-to-face education, is very minimal. We should really encourage that in the future.
Okay, the role of youth here, because Dr. Saeed's son, actually, like we talked about that before, went into a competition, and they came up with a device, and that they won.
That's the Egyptian team. Yes. He won another one.
Okay, we don't know about
last week. Last week, he won. His team won the first prize in a new competition. It was in Holland. Yes. And that is really
also this education. One was in Holland?
It was in Holland also.
Okay, both.
Where
yes.
Thank you.
They came here last year. They're just brilliant young men.
Absolutely. Definitely. And that's the future.
Yes,
that's
exactly.
The future,
exactly.
Is to be involved in project, whether it's inside Egypt or outside Egypt. The more competition you have, the more challenge you have, the more new ways of thinking will happen. That is what we're talking about, hybrid education.
Definitely, definitely. Then a final word.
Final word. We are, we finished the groundwork of the economic takeoff. GDP growth is at 5.7%. Inflation is under control. Unemployment is declining to a risky level. Why do I say to a risky level? Because in the US, for example, the government gets concerned when unemployment gets at 5%, because this means that workforce prices will go up and that you will not find the natural mismatch in what you, in demand and supply. Foreign exchange reserves are stable and comfortable. Now, when we call this the hardware part, we need the software part. The branding, the alignment, the marketing, the customer service orientation.
Yes.
Let's treat every visitor to Egypt, be that a tourist, an investor, an industrial, a researcher, innovator, entrepreneurship, as our guest, as our customer coming to Egypt, getting happy experience.
Exactly. 3 seconds.
1 second.
Okay.
I believe we are moving in the right direction. We should keep hope alive. We are going to be very good in the future. So I really see that from my forecasting and so on.
Well, Dr. Said Khoury, thank you very much for
Thank
being
you
with
very much
us.
for
And
being with
Dr.
us.
Samara, thank you very much for being with us.
you
We
very
enjoyed your presence, and good
Time
times fly
fly.
very fast, exactly, with you gentlemen. Thank you very much for being with us. We'll see you again next week. God bless our Egypt. تدخلوا بسلام إن شاء الله آمنين. And to Egypt, God willing, safe and Mubarak Shabi Masr. Blessed be Egypt, my people. Goodbye for now.